Shalom, Israel. Shalom, shalom. Brother Naquam, watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut, giving, of course, our honor and our glory to Yahweh. By Shema Mashiach Malak Yabushai, double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming of Hamashiach Malak Yabushai. A hearty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, and presenting their body as a living sacrifice. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there on the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're studying, they're praying, they're fasting. They're being diligent and abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the Aquath out there, the sincere sisters out there, holding it down in the households, reverencing their husbands, being submissive, being diligent, and moving in the spirit of our righteous foremothers. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to everybody tuning in live. Nahum Yasha'Allah. Shalom King. Kyoko Banyamyan. HBK Int. Muk the General. Said Israel Abaya. We got next Israel. Pat Wolf from Egypt to Israel. Salah Judah. Aaron Israel _90. And everybody else tuning in and that will tune in. Mosai willing. All praises to Yahweh. The topic of this cold cut is the Samaritans, the Herodian Dynasty, and the Hasmoneans. So I want to touch on some history and dive into the Samaritans and the Herodians, because that's something that we always get on the highways and byways. We speak about the woman at the well. We speak about the northern kingdom and Samaria, and we go into that and we talk about the Maccabees, but I want to touch on it and deal with it, man. You know, I got through wrapping up a study session with the Mighty Brothers in St. Louis, right? And I said, well, look, I might as well go into a cold cut on it because I wanted to go in depth in it. And the Spirit is on me to dive into it. And it's a lot of history and things going on that I want to be able to touch on. So first and foremost, I want to bring this precept out, right? So I want to dive into this because you have the Old Testament, right, which we know of from Genesis to Malachi. You have the Apocrypha, right? And you have your New Testament, right? And you have something what scholars call, let's see, inter-testamental period, right? Now, this is the gap I want to cover. The intertestamental period or deuterocanonical period is the period of time between the events of the proto-canonical books of the New Testament, right? Traditionally, it is considered to cover roughly 400 years, spanning the ministry of Malachi. It's really from Malachi, the time period from Malachi to St. Matthew, the first chapter. So you read from Genesis to Malachi, and then you pick up in Matthew, and I want to cover this intertestamental period. Right, we know that you have something called the Apocrypha, right? You have the Apocrypha, but these books, when you go back and look at older Bibles and how it was canonized, a lot of these books are in your so-called Old Testament. Tobit, right? That takes place in the time of the Old Testament. First and Second Esdras, Judith, additions of Esther. What else we have? Baruch, Prayer of Azariah, which is the Song of the Three Holy Children, Letter of Jeremiah, right? Baruch, the 6th chapter, Baruch, Susanna, Bella and the Dragon, Prayer of Manasseh. These books take place during the Old Testament, right? Wisdom of Solomon was written during the time of Solomon. But then you have something called what scholars call your intertestamental period. And really, the main books that touch on that out of the Apocrypha are 1st and 2nd Maccabees, which we do know. But there's other history behind that I want to be able to touch on that leads up to the time of Matthew, the 1st chapter, right? So I want to dive into that and actually deal with it, right? So I want to kick it off with Matthew chapter 10, right? Let's go to Matthew. And if the brothers from St. Louis that was on this call, they know exactly how I'm going to approach this. Most I will. Right, so this is St. Matthew chapter 10. I want to touch on this. Matthew 10:5, it reads, These 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And we often go into this verse when we go into how the Most High only sent Yahushua and the apostles to Israel, and they're the only ones that can receive salvation, which is true. And they're the only ones unto whom can receive the promises given to our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is also true, right? But I want to touch on this part of the verse where it says, "And into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not." Right now, the Samaritans, when you dive into it, were really an amalgamation of different tribes, ethnicities that lived in Samaria. The chief people of this land are Israelites, right? Of Samaria. Samaria is a city that was really the headquarters, for lack of better terms, of the northern kingdom of Israel. Now, when you go into, let's go into Isaiah 1 and 7, right? And prove that, right? This is a fundamental precept brothers know about. Isaiah chapter 1 and 7. Right? Let's get this. Bear with me 1 second. All right, this is the book of Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 7. It reads, "Your country," it's like Isaiah, that one in, I went over this in a minute. Isaiah 7 and 9, Salaki, right? Salaki, Isaiah chapter 7, right? And verse 9. "And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If ye would not believe, surely ye would not be established." So we know when a kingdom was divided into two. Let's pull this up. Let's see, kingdom of Israel divided. When the kingdom was divided in two, you got the kingdom of Judea, and you had the northern kingdom, which is what? The kingdom of Israel, right? And here's some quick history behind it. After King Solomon's death, and around 930 BC, the kingdom split into a northern kingdom, which retained the name Israel, and a southern kingdom called Judah, right? Which is true, right? You read 1 Kings, the 12th chapter, and you'll see during the time of Rehoboam, after the death of Solomon, the kingdom was divided. All right, the kingdom was divided. And the scriptures say that the head of Ephraim is Samaria. The entire northern kingdom began to be known as the house of Ephraim, right? The house of Ephraim. When you go to Jeremiah, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 7 and prove that, right? The entire northern kingdom, the alternative name was the house of Ephraim, because Ephraim was the head tribe out of your so-called northern kingdom tribes. Jeremiah chapter 7 and 15. It reads, "And if ye will, and I will cast you out of my sight, as I have cast out all your brethren, even the whole seed of Ephraim." See that? So the whole seed of Ephraim was cast out. Who's the whole seed of Ephraim? The whole seed of Ephraim is what? Your northern kingdom, right? It's like your Reuben, Simeon, etc. Right? When you go down to your different tribes, that's who your northern kingdom is. All right. And they were all called the seed of Ephraim. The chief city of Ephraim was Samaria. All right. It was Samaria. Now you can see it starred right here, right? On this map, it has a star on it. That's the headquarters, just like Jerusalem. Now, prior to Samaria being the chief capital of Ephraim, it was Tirzah, right? When you read the Bible, you'll see that there was a civil war going on between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, which I'm not going to go to every precept on this king against that king and this king against that king. That's something that brothers should be reading on their own, right? You can dive into that history and see what king warred against what king and what king took these people captive and these different events that befell our people, man. Read that history, man. It's good to go into prophecy. You know, it's good to go into the Psalms. It's good to go into the Torah. It's also good to go into that history, man. And read 1 Samuel. Read 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, and see what happened to our nation, you know? Now, prior to Samaria being the chief capital of the northern kingdom, there was a city called Tirzah, right? 1 Kings 16 and 6. So Baasha slept with his fathers and was buried in Tirzah, and Eli his son reigned in his stead. And every kingdom has a headquarters city, right? Babylon the Great, they have DC, right? Egypt, they got Cairo. France, they got Paris. England, they got London. China, they got Beijing. There's always a chief capital city. And that's really where the most legislation comes out. That's where the rulership comes out from. That's where the orders are given out from. So Tirzah was that chief city in the northern kingdom prior to Samaria, right? Let's jump down. 1 Kings 16:8. In the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Eli, the son of Baasha, to reign over Israel, and Tirzah 2 years. Right? So he reigned in Tirzah 2 years. That was the chief city. And I'll pull it up on the map, I believe, even in 1 Kings, the 15th chapter. Right? If I'm not mistaken. Right? Salakia. Right? That's Satan. Let's go to 1 Kings, the 15th chapter. And I want to get another verse on that. I believe that's 1 Kings 15 and 32, right? So let's go back one chapter, 1 Kings 15 and 32. And there was a war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. Asa was the king of Judah, who lived in Jerusalem. Baasha, he was the king of the northern kingdom. And there was that civil war going on. Deuteronomy 28:54. In the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, began Baasha, the son of Ahijah, to reign over all Israel, and Tirzah 24 years. So Tirzah was that chief city. Now here's Tirzah on the map. Tirzah was located right here. And this was the headquarters for a lot of the kings of Israel. You know, prior to 1 Kings, the 16th chapter, right? They all dwelt here. Now, you may say, well, how did Samaria, when we read Isaiah 7 and 9, how did Samaria become that chief city? Well, let's go and prove. Let's see why the transition from Tirzah to Samaria was done. Right? Samaria was a more elevated, more defensed city. Right? It served as a city of high defense where you can build walls, set your towers up, your watchmen. It was a little bit more strategic when it came to war. You know, and some kingdoms do that. They'll change their capital. Right? Babylon did that. Babylon or America, they went from, I believe, Philadelphia used to be the capital, and then I believe Annapolis, and then DC. Other kingdoms do that too. They transition. I believe the Persian Empire had multiple capitals. They had Shushan, Persepolis, and other chief cities where you have multiple top cities. Rather, you change this city for strategic purposes. The Assyrian Empire did the same thing. And rather, you change it for military purposes. And the northern kingdom, they said, well, look, we're going to move from Tirzah to Samaria. Samaria is more fortified, it's higher up in the mountains, and we'll be able to kind of resemble what the kingdom of Judah is doing with Jerusalem. Right? Because Jerusalem is elevated in the mountains. When you go to the book of Psalms, it speaks on that. Right? Let's go to Psalms chapter 48. And they wanted to resemble what the King Solomon's sons were doing down there in Jerusalem. Right? Psalms 48:1. Great is Yahweh, and greatly to be praised is the city of our God, and the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation. You see that? The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. So it's beautiful for situation. It's literally higher than any other city in that location. You have to ascend up to Jerusalem. It's not like on a plane. It's not like Orlando or Miami, right? Where you could kind of just walk down, and you have to climb up and get to Jerusalem. That's why these kingdoms that took over Israel, although they took it over, they had a hard time doing it. It's hard to go against a city elevated, right? And when you go to the book of Judith, they actually give you that, right? They give you that history behind it. And what the northern kingdom did was they wanted to resemble what success the kingdom of Judah had dealing with Jerusalem. And they said, well, we have to copy that, and we're going to do something, but we're going to do Samaria. They said, we can't do Tirzah. It's too low. It's not as mountainous. Let's pick Samaria. And I'm going to give you some more history behind that. This is Judith chapter 7 and verse, let's see where I want to start. Judith chapter 7 and verse 8. Then came unto him all the chief of the children of Esau, and all the governors of the people of Moab, and the captains of the sea coast, and said, so you have the Moabites and the Edomites linking up to give Holofernes intel on how to overthrow the Jews. Right? They're about to get this man our quote unquote kryptonite when it comes to military war. Let our Lord now hear a word, that there be not an overthrow in thine army. So here, listen up to this advice, so you don't lose any men. For this people of the children of Israel do not trust in their spears, but in the height of the mountains wherein they dwell, because it is not easy to come up to the tops of their mountains. So the Edomites knew that, man. The Moabites knew that. Hey, the Romans, asked the Romans during the time of the Roman Jewish wars, man. How hard they had to build land ramps and siege weapons just to get to Masada, just to get to Jerusalem, man. They had a hard time. We see you coming a mile away. We have high walls, fortified cities. Our city is divided into different quarters. We have watchmen set up. So you had if you was taking Israel down, the Most High had to be with you, man. Because when the Most High was with us, there was no taking Jerusalem down. It was lights out to these heathen. You know? Now, again, going back to Samaria, they wanted to resemble that. That's why they transitioned their kingdom from Tirzah to Samaria. Let's prove that. Let's go to the book of 1 Kings, the 16th chapter. Right? Showing you going into that history of Samaria and the Samaritans and how it came to be. Right? 1 Kings, right, Salakia, chapter 16 and verse 23. And the 36th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Omri to reign over Israel. 12 years, 6 years reigned he in Tirzah. Right? We covered that was the first capital. We went to 1 Kings 15 to 33. And he bought the hill of Samaria of Shemer for 2 talents of silver and built on the hill. So this was an elevated land. And called the name of the city which he built after the name of Shemer, owner of the hill, Samaria. Like I was going into with the brothers, Samaria in the Hebrew goes back to Shemer. Shemer goes back to the Hebrew word Shamar, which means watch, right? Let's see if they actually get that. Called it after the name of the city. I'm going to go into that in the Hebrew. Right? It should be Shamar, which means to watch, because that was an elevated land where you were able to see everything around you. It says preserved. It really means to watch, right? Let's go into Samaria. I just want to go into that. They said preserved. It's not really what it's going into. All right. Like watchman. Watchman in the Hebrew, or to watch is Shamar. Or keep. It's keep or watch. That's what it means. Right? Even in Numbers, the 6th chapter, you have the prayer of Aaron and his sons, where it says, the Lord keep thee, the Lord bless thee. Right? So let me get this word. Samaria. And I want to go into that in the Hebrew just to prove a point. I want to see if they have it in the Bible dictionary, right? While I pull this up, I want to see, which I doubt, but you never know, right? Let's go to this word Samaria. If they have it, all praises. If not, Samaria. If you have the Bible dictionary, they do have it. Samaria, right, this page 517 out of the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary, they say Samaria means watch tower, right? So they're pretty much right. It means watch tower. Let me show this so brothers can see this. All right, you see that? Samaria, watchtower. Another name for the northern kingdom of Israel, founded when the 10 tribes refused to acknowledge Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, as their king. It extended from Bethel unto Dan. So it does mean watch, right? But they added tower, and it doesn't mean tower, it just means a watch. All right. Now let's pull this back up. All right, we're going into this history. All right, we diving into it. We're leaving no stone unturned. So let's pull this up. I want to go into it. So this First Kings 13 to 32. I'm only going here to go into this word Samaria. Right, so bear with me. Salakia. Bear with me 1 second. Now, again, this was bought. See that? Watch mountain. Samaria means watch mountain. The region of northern Palestine associated with the northern kingdom of the 10 tribes of Israel, which split from the kingdom after the death of Solomon during the reign of his son Rehoboam, and were ruled by Jeroboam. The capital city, right? We covered that. It went from Tirzah to Samaria. The capital city of the northern kingdom of Israel, located 30 miles north of Jerusalem and 6 miles northwest of Shechem. So this was a city strategically chosen to be literally contrary or the same thing as Jerusalem out there down south. You know, and that's what we read in 1 Kings, the 16th chapter. Let's go back to 1 Kings, right? 1 Kings chapter 16. 1 Kings, the 16th chapter. Because again, you're reading in that New Testament, you're seeing, okay, Yahushua said, go not into the Samaritans. Read about them in Acts 1 and 8. You read about them in John, the 4th chapter. And there's always confusion dealing with the Samaritans. Even a woman at the well, some men say she's an Israelite. Some men say she's not. Who are the Samaritans? Are they northern king? Who are they? So we're going into that history, so brothers have that information in their arsenal. So again, 1 Kings chapter 16 and 24, one more time. And he bought the hill of Samaria of Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and built on the hill, and called the name of the city which he built after the name of Shemer, owner of the hill, Samaria, which is a high mountain, all right, where you can watch from. Now, when you go into this, this was the capital city of the northern kingdom. Now, I want to go back to Matthew, the 10th chapter. The Lord said, these 12, Matthew 10 and 5, these 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and enter any of the city of the Samaritans, enter ye not, right? And enter any of the city, any city of the Samaritans, enter ye not. Now, what happened to Samaria, right? I'm not going to go all in depth, right, and read every chapter of Kings. So I'm going to jump to 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, right? Let's jump to 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, and kind of go into this thing, man. What happened to this city? Why would Yahushua say don't go into where the Samaritans are? Even though Samaria is in the land of Israel, why would Yahushua command his apostles not to go to a place in Israel? I thought the Lord came for the Israelites. All right. The Lord said he's only sent in Matthew 15:24. He said, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So if the Lord was only sent to the Israelites and Samaria is in the land of Israel, then we got to figure out what's going on. Why not these people? What's going on here, man? They're in the land of Israel, but yet the Lord said, don't go to them. They're smack between where Yahushua is from in Galilee and some of the apostles, and Judea, where the temple is. So what's going on here, man? Even and I'll dive into it after I bring this up. 2 Kings chapter 17 and verse 23. It reads, and until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria to this day. So as you read 1 Kings, 2 Kings, you find out that northern kingdom was going off. You find out that different Assyrian kings, right, that came against them. You read about Sennacherib. You read about Sargon in the Bible. You read about Tiglath-Pileser III. Read about Shalmaneser the fifth, and these different kings who went against Israel. And Shalmaneser was the fifth, who was the one who actually took Israel away, right? During the time of Hosea, the king, or Hoshea the king. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, from Kutha, and from Avah, and from Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. So you had heathen that were replaced and put in that land, right? Kutha, Avah, Hamath, Sepharvaim, right? And they possessed Samaria. Now, I want to read on. And these are men from all over the Mesopotamia, various parts of the land of Ham, etc. Right? And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not the Lord. Therefore, the Lord sent lions among them, which slew some of them. So the Lord, if you're in that land, you don't belong there, the Lord will destroy you, man. Look what's happening to the Amalekites. They have skin cancer, right? They're getting floods, droughts. They're in war constantly, right? The Lord put heavy demons of perversion on them. So the Lord will send wild lions and put spirits on you if you're in that land and it doesn't belong to you. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land. So these heathen that was placed in Samaria were freaking off and doing God knows what with their false gods and idols. The Lord judged them, sent wild beasts among them, killed them. They reported back and said, hey, the Most High is killing these people. Something must be done, because they don't know the knowledge of the Most High in the land. Verse 27. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, carry thither one of the priests whom ye brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let them teach the manner of the God of the land. So he said, take one of the northern kingdom priests and have them teach. And we know that all of the priests that were righteous, they were no longer in the northern kingdom. They all traveled and went back to Jerusalem. That's when we speak about the Jews, we say Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, because the Levites left their coast and went to Jerusalem. So the priest that they sent to teach these heathen was not a well-known, righteous, godly priest. How do you know that? Let's go into it. Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 11. Right? 2 Chronicles chapter 11. I want to get 13 on down. Right? 2 Chronicles chapter 11 and 13. It reads, and the priests and the Levites that were in all Israel resorted to him out of all their coast. So when Jeroboam was going off and set up 2 golden calves to compete against the Most High's holy days, the Levites want nothing to do with it. They left all their cities. They have 42 cities. They left any city they had in the northern kingdom and said, I don't want to deal with that. I'm going to go to Jerusalem. Right on this side of the Levites joined Judah and Benjamin. For the Levites left their suburbs and their possession and came to Judah and Jerusalem, for Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto the Lord. And he, meaning Jeroboam, ordained him priest for the high places and for the devils and for the calves which he made. Right? So any priest that the king of Assyria went to get to teach the people the knowledge of God and the land were wicked priests. Priests that worship devils, priests that worship 2 golden calves, priests that built altars and groves and high places to Baal and the spiritual demon Satan, man. So you have men that already don't know the law because they're heathen. They're in a land that doesn't belong to them. And now they have the worst teacher ever, a wicked priest, to come teach them how to serve the Most High. You know, so this is a recipe for disaster. And 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. So let's read on. 2 Kings 17 and 28. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria, which was a priest that worshipped devils, came and dwelt in Bethel and taught them how they should fear the Lord. You wonder how that went. Here you are serving the spiritual demon Satan, and you come to teach them how they should fear the Lord. Madness. Howbeit, every nation made gods of their own and put them in the houses of the high places, which the Samaritans had made, and every nation and the cities wherein they dwelt. So they said, we're not listening to anything you got to say. Did that to them, huh? And they said, we're going to serve our gods because they're heathen. And the men of Babylon, right? And you know, this is just going to the different gods he set up. And the men of Babylon made Succoth-Benoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima. So they served these other gods. And the Avites made Niphaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvites burned their children in fire to Adremelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they feared the Lord and made unto themselves the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of their high places. So you had northern kingdom, and it's like you had heathen dwelling in Samaria, right, at this time on the earth, right, and in these other parts. Now I'm gonna go to 2 Chronicles, the 30th chapter. All right, let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 30. 2 Chronicles chapter 30. Was every northern kingdom Israelite carried away captive? No, not every northern kingdom was carried away captive and came to this side of the world. That's something that we have to understand. Biblically and historically, not every northern kingdom was carried away captive. And not every one of them came to the new world. If that was the case, why in Luke chapter 2 and 36, it reads, and there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age and had lived with an husband 7 years from her virginity. So you had Israelites from the tribe of Asher that dwelt in Jerusalem, huh? Or that dwelt in the land of Judah. Do you think that she's the only Israelite from the northern kingdom? No, her father was there. Her father. They dwelt there, man. You had Israelites from other tribes outside of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi that dwelt amongst the Jews. You know? Now, I'm going to go to 2 Chronicles, the 30th chapter, and go into this. Now, check this out. And Hezekiah is the king of Judah. Let's pull up Hezekiah's rulership. King Hezekiah. And when he ruled. Right? Let's get the date on this. King Hezekiah. I may have to go to a timeline. All right, let's pull this up. So they're saying 750, right? 750 to 651 BC. So he was the king of Judea when northern kingdom got carried away captive, right? Now, like I brought out, not every northern kingdom person was going off. Even when you read Tobit says, when you read Tobit, it says his fathers were always go to Jerusalem. You know, so not every Israelite, even from the tribe of Naphtali, was going off. Let me get that in Tobit. Let me not talk about it. And I'm going to go into why I'm going into Hezekiah. Right, let's go to Tobit, the first chapter. All right, let's go to Tobit chapter 1 and deal with it. Right, this Tobit chapter 1 and verse 2. Who in the time of Anemasar, king of the Assyrians, was led captive out of this beat, which is at the right hand of that city, which is called properly Naphtali, in Galilee above Asher. I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the way of truth and justice, and I did many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation who came with me to Nineveh and to the land of the Assyrians. So he was carried away captive. And when I was in my own country in the land of Israel, being but young, all the tribe of Naphtali, my father, fell from the house of Jerusalem, which was chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, that all the tribes should sacrifice there where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was consecrated and built for all ages. So he said, my tribe went off. We fell away. Now all the tribes which together revolted and the house of my father Naphtali sacrificed unto the heifer Baal. But I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feast. So not every northern kingdom was going off, right? Went alone at the feast as it was ordained unto all the people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruits and tenths of the increase with that which was first shorn, and them gave I at the altar to the priests of the children of Aaron. You see that? So Tobit, his sons, they were actually going down to Jerusalem, right? And the prophetess, her family was still there. So you still had a remnant of particular Israelites in that region at that time. This is 2 Chronicles chapter 30 and verse 1. And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh that they should come to the house of the Lord at Jerusalem to keep the Passover unto the Lord God of Israel. And as you read this chapter, which I'm not going to read this whole chapter, you see that these tribes came, some of these tribes came and actually kept the Passover, Ephraim and Manasseh. So northern kingdom is still, some of them are still keeping the commandments, but not all of them. So when you get to the time of them being carried away captive, you get to the point where these heathen was put in that land, but you had a remnant of them that were still there. Now I'm gonna go into, let's go into John, right? Let's go into John, the 4th chapter, right? And kind of bridge the gap. Let's go to John, the 4th chapter with the woman at the well. All right, this is John chapter 4. Let me close this out so like you. So this is John chapter 4 and 1. Now, therefore, the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Yahushua made and baptized more disciples than John, though Yahushua himself baptized not, but his disciples. He left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. You see that? So you have to go through Samaria. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of the ground that Jacob gave to his son. So Samaria became the, let's see, where's the map? This region. It became known, although it was a city, in due time, this region between Nazareth and Galilee and Jerusalem, it became known as Samaria, that region. All right, now let's see what happened. John 4 and 5. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of the ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Yahushua, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well. And it was about the 6th hour, so it's about noon. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahushua saith unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were going away into the city to buy meat. Here's the point. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. See that? So Yahushua was a Jew. We know he was an Israelite from the tribe of Judah, from the house of David. Here you have a woman of Samaria who has professed some information. She said the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. You know, even the apostle, let's see, the apostle Peter, right? Let's go to Acts, the 10th chapter. right? It said, you know, it is unlawful for you to come into one of another nation. Acts 10:28. And he said unto them, ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come to one of another nation. But the Most High showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. So it is an unlawful thing pursuant to what law? Leviticus 20:26, Leviticus 20:24, Leviticus 19:2, right? Be ye holy, for I am holy. That means separate, right? Leviticus 20:26, I have severed you from other people. Leviticus 20:24, I have separated you from other people. Paraphrasing those. So those are just three quick commandments where you had Israelites that were commanded not to eat and drink and deal with the heathen. Now, although Cornelius was an Israelite, which we know that fervently, we understand that he was classified as another nation due to the fact that our people live like the other nations. Now, we can tie that into John the 4th chapter, because she said the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And how did this come to be? Why don't the Jews have any dealings with the Samaritans? Right now, I want to actually show you, even outside of John the 4th chapter, that there was an underlying tension between the Jews and the Samaritans. Right. And you can see that if you've been reading the New Testament or you have read it, you see these little jabs and little, things that are happening, right? And let's show you Luke the 9th chapter to show you that there was always tension during the time of the apostles between the Samaritans and the Jews. And we just went over this again with a mighty call with the brothers in St. Louis. So this is St. Luke chapter 9, and I'm going to start at, 51. And it came to pass when the time was come that he should be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. So Yahushua is in Galilee. He wants to go to Jerusalem. And sent messengers before his face. And they went and entered into a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him. So Yahushua, he's going from Galilee to Jerusalem. But the best way to go is you have to go through Samaria. If you're out here in Galilee and you need to go to Jerusalem, you're not going to go and compass land and sea to get there, right? You're not going to go from there, get in the boat to the Mediterranean and land down and to the land of Edom and travel up. No, the best way to go is straight through Samaria, right? Straight shot. That's why the scripture says he sent messengers to receive him, right? And they did not receive him because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem. Now, these are Israelites in Samaria who didn't want to receive him. And we're going to go through and show you fervently. They said, look, now you can't come through here. Like I was going over with the brothers, this is, some niggatry, for lack of a better term, some gang type stuff that they're in, man. It's like you being from Detroit, right? And another man is from Chicago, and you got to get past Chicago to go to another city, and they say, look, you can't come through Chicago, right? Or you try and go there? No, you can't go. You can't go through here, man. Right? You can't come around this way. You from L Street, you try and get to M Street, you can't come through M Street. You got to go around. And they didn't want him to go to Jerusalem. Why were they mad that Yahushua was going to Jerusalem? Because that's where the temple was. All right, reading on. And when his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Lord, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elias did? So they said, hey, look, they want some smoke. Let's call fire down from heaven. So this was already tension between the Samaritans and the Jews. They said, oh, he a Jew? He coming to Jerusalem. He can't come around this way. And I'm led to believe they kind of picked their swords up and held it to these guys' throat, the messengers, and said, hey, tell him, look, he can't come around this way, man. Probably held it to his head. Jake take a damn gun and put it in your face. No, you can't come around here. And James and John heard it, and they got emotional, man. He said, look, we want to kill these guys. Samaritans said, hey, look, we'll kill you, man. So this was some beef stuff going on. Heavy tension. Let's go to John the 8th chapter. Let's go to John the 8th chapter. Heavy tension between the Samaritans and the Jews, man. So those are the curses right there. That's Deuteronomy 28:54. Yeah, I evil towards your brother. John chapter 8 and 48. To show you that tension going on. It reads, then answered the Jews and said unto him, say we not well that thou art a Samaritan and hast the devil? What does that mean? That means all of the Jews looked at the Samaritans and said, these are some damn devils, some heathen, demons. They said, look, we're going to call you a Samaritan. If you were called a Samaritan back then, boy, that's an insult. That's like being called an Edomite. Like we're going to, hey, a brother be offended, or you call a brother a Hamite or a Moabite, man. That's an insult. If a brother's off, hey, you acting like an Edomite, you got a damn devil. Because we look at all of the Edomites as being the devil, which they are. Now, they looked at all of the Samaritans as if they had devils on them. That's how the Jews looked at the Samaritans. That's how the Samaritans looked at the Jews. That's what a woman said, hey, the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And there is more history behind that I'm gonna touch on. Now, in order to touch deep into that, which I want to get into, I want to touch on the point in Luke the 9th chapter. Right? Luke the 9th chapter. So when you go back to Luke the 9th chapter, right? St. Luke 9 and 53. Here's the point I want to touch on. And they did not receive him because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem. Now, during the time, here's the history behind that I want to be able to pinpoint on. Back in Samaria, they had their own place of worship. They had their own place of worship, their own priests, their own thing going on. And they wanted that place to be the place of worship. That's even in John the 4th chapter. She said, our fathers worship in this place. And you say men ought to be in Jerusalem. So that was big beef going on too. You had Israelites who said, guess what? We're going to worship right here. We're not going to Jerusalem, right? That goes back to the time of Rehoboam. And you had the Jews said, no, we're going to serve the Most High here. They said he going to the temple. That temple, no. If he want to go to the temple, he ain't coming through us. Now, if Yahweh Shah said, look, I want to come to Samaria and worship, they would have received him. Hey, brother, where you been now? Here, let me get you a place to stay. But they said, no, you going down there to worship? No, hell no, that ain't the real temple. You ain't going down there. Pretty much, hey, forget. And I don't, the word forget is a light word, a more colorful word. I'm sure you can think of it. They say, hey, man, forget Jerusalem, man. That's not the temple. And if you're going down there, you can't come through here. You can only come through here if you come into this place to worship. And again, the woman in the well, she elaborated on that, right? The Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Now I'm going to jump down. Right? She said in John 4 and 12, art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle, right? So she came out of that lineage. Now I'm going to read on. Now check this out. This is John 4 and 19. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worship in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. And that was the beef. That's why these Jews in John the 8th chapter say, look, say we not well that thou art a Samaritan and thou hast a devil. Why did they call them devils? Because they was worshiping outside of Jerusalem. Huh? When you're commanded in the law to go to Jerusalem 3 times a year, they said, man, forget all that, man. We're going to do what we want to do. Our fathers, we're going to worship here. Y'all worship down there. And it was heavy tension. Heavy tension. That's why Yahushua said in John the 10th chapter, I don't want y'all going to Samaria. Right? At that time. Because they lived like Gentiles. They was doing their own thing. And if these were heathen, if the Samaritans are heathen, which they're not in terms of salvation, when you go to, let's go to Acts the 1st chapter. Why would Yahushua say this? Right? Let's go to Acts the 1st chapter. That's why it's important to go into the history, which we're going to go deeper into. We digging deep, right? Through the spirit and power of Yahushua, of course. Acts 1:8. Here's after Yahushua told his apostles to go into all nations, right? So, like, bear with me. Right? So here's after he told them to go into all nations. Acts 1:8. But ye shall receive power. After that, the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and into the uttermost part of the earth. So hold on. In Matthew the 10th chapter, the Lord said, and into any city of the Samaritan, don't go there. But now in Acts the 1st chapter, he said, okay, now you can go there. Now it's time to go to them. Now it's time to go to the utmost parts of the earth. Why? Because you had Israelites who were going off in various fashions. Certain Israelites were Hellenes. They lived like the Greeks. They wore the Greek toga like Timothy's father. They shaved their beard off and they were into God knows what. Others, they spoke Greek and they were serving other gods. And certain men in Samaria that they were worshiping and going against the grain and living like heathen, doing their own thing. But now it's time for them to come back to the Most High. Because you have Israelites there that were worshiping other gods. Or worshiping, rather, I'll put it like this. Worshiping in a place that the Most High told them not to worship, which is a sin. And they didn't take correction, and they were counted as heathen. Now, when you go to John the 4th chapter, she said, our fathers worshipped in this mountain. And ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. And it's not that Yahushua said that. Well, technically he did. That's what the Most High said. Right? Which is, the word is Yahushua. It's not that you guys say that you got to go to Jerusalem. That's what the Most High said. So, you know, she was stuck in her ways. And she erred not knowing the scriptures. Because it's not a Jew thing where the Jews said this the place. No, that's what the Most High said. The Most High said that Jerusalem is the place that men ought to worship. There ain't nothing that man said. Let's prove that. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter. Right? Let's deal with it. Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter. Prove that in the law. This is why the Jews had no dealings with the Samaritans. Let's see. Deuteronomy 12:5. But unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and thither thou shalt come. Ultimately, that was Jerusalem. He had other places, Shiloh, when you had a place where the priest dwelt in Nob, but that place is Jerusalem. That place is Jerusalem. That's the place that the Most High chose. He didn't choose Samaria. He didn't choose Shechem or Mount Carmel or Mount Hebron or Anathoth of the land of Benjamin or Mizpah. He chose Jerusalem. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 16. Deuteronomy chapter 16 and 16. Let's deal with it. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God, in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Here you have it again. 3 times in a year, they're going to the place that the Most High chose. So here's the woman saying, Ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship, which is true. But her people, they were going off worshiping in this mountain. What mountain were they worshiping in? Mount Gerizim. How do you know that? We're going to show you that. They were worshiping the Most High in the wrong place in Mount Gerizim, and they were counted as heathen. Right? They were serving the Lord. But they were freaking off, man, for lack of better terms. Right? Let me get this precept. Let me get Matthew, the 18th chapter. Right? That's what you call sacrilege. Sacrilege, blasphemy, heresy, lawlessness. Matthew 18 and 17. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. So a man that didn't get down with order, that didn't get down with the laws and commandments, they were counted as heathens. That's why Yahushua told them in Matthew the 10th chapter, verse 5, don't go to the Samaritans. They were counted heathen. They wanted to do their own thing. That's what you call apostasy, heresy, rebellion. Just straight up and down. There's no other way to put it. But then in Acts, the 1st chapter, Yahushua said, okay, now you can go to them. Now we can go to Pamphylia or Pontus or Thessalonica or Athens, wherever our people are at now. Men that lived in sin, that have fallen short, they believe if they hear the word, they can come unto me. The Israelites that lived in Samaria. Now, I want to prove that this is Mount Gerizim. Let's actually go to, and why Mount Gerizim? Because Mount Gerizim was looked at as a holy site to our fathers. Remember, when you go back into the law, you find out that that's the place where the blessings were given to our people. Right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 27. Let's see. And 12. These shall stand upon Mount Gerizim to bless the people. When ye are come over Jordan, Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Joseph and Benjamin. So this was a place, a holy site to some of our forefathers. That's where the blessings were as you entered into the promised land. That's the mountain that she's making reference to in John the 4th chapter. Now let's pull this up on the map. Let's prove that. Where is it set? So that's Samaria. So here's Mount Gerizim. Here's Samaria. This whole region. Where is it set right here? I'll use this one. Salaki, bear with me. So Samaria was this entire region, right? And they would travel in Samaria. They would worship the Most High in the mountain of Samaria, which was Mount Gerizim. Mount Gerizim is the place where they began to worship the Most High. Again, how do we know that? Let's go back to John the 4th chapter. Let's read that again. Right? John the 4th chapter. Then I want to go into that history on what was really going on there. John 4 and 20, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. We're showing you right now, geographically speaking, that that's Mount Gerizim. That's where the blessings were given. Our fathers went off in apostasy and they began to worship the Most High here, and they didn't go to Jerusalem because Jerusalem was being ran by wicked Israelites. And also, this goes way back, man. When you pull this history up, let's see. Let's go into this. I pulled it up with the brothers. Temple destroyed in Mount Gerizim. Check this history out right here. Remnants, and this is what really caused that beef between the Samaritans and the Jews. Remnants found there identified that a Samaritan temple existed atop Mount Gerizim by the mid-5th century BC. So all the way back during the time of Darius. Darius, the king of Persia, Artaxerxes, right? Salaki. During the time of these Persian kings, you had our forefathers that built the temple outside of Jerusalem. You know, the temple was destroyed in 586 BC by the Edomites, led by the Babylonians. We began to rebuild the temple. Our forefathers said, no, we're going to do this thing up here in Samaria at Mount Gerizim. So this is what caused that tension. That's the history that we need to know. That's why she said our fathers worshipped in this mountain, because they literally had built the temple in that mountain, and that it was eventually destroyed and rebuilt in the early 2nd century. Only, check this out, only to be destroyed again in 111 or 110 BC by Jewish, right? We know that's the Israelites, forces under the orders of Hasmonean leader John Hyrcanus. Now, John Hyrcanus is the son of Simon Maccabees. We know about Simon. We keep a feast day to the Most High about Simon and his life and his ability to serve Yahweh while Yahweh Shai. We know about Judas Maccabees. We know about Jonathan. We know about Simon. Simon had a son, John Hyrcanus. John Hyrcanus, being a Levitical priest, knowing that the temple is in Jerusalem, went and destroyed a temple in Mount Gerizim. And that fueled that tension, that long tension between the Samaritans and the Jews. You know, let's actually go into that. And John Hyrcanus, let me pull this up just so brothers understand. Here's a family tree of the Maccabees, the Hasmonean dynasty. We know Mattathias had 5 sons: John Gaddai, Simon Maccabeus, Judas Maccabeus, Eleazar, and Jonathan. Simon had sons: John Hyrcanus the first, Mattathias, and Judah. John Hyrcanus began to rule in power. He began to take over. Right? Let me get this in 1 Maccabees. And he was very zealous. And that's why he destroyed that false temple that they had in Samaria. Let's go to 1 Maccabees, the 16th chapter. Right? 1 Maccabees chapter 16. And let's deal with it. Right? This 1 Maccabees chapter 16 and 1. Then came up John from Gazara and told Simon his father what Senedibus had done. Wherefore Simon called his 2 eldest sons, Judas and John. See that? Let's match it up with actual history. Judah and John. Simon called his 2 eldest sons, Judah and John. Right? Let's read on. And said unto them, I and my brethren and my father's house have ever from our youth unto this day fought against the enemies of Israel. And things have prospered so well in our hands that we have delivered Israel oftentimes. And really, you had to, when you read Maccabees, they had to kill wicked Jake, man, and destroy wicked Israelites all throughout Maccabees. Judas had to do it. Mattathias kicked it off. Simon had to do it. And John followed that torch. John Hyrcanus, one of the eldest sons, he actually, Slaki, bear with me, carried that torch and became zealous, and what destroyed the temple that was in Mount Gerizim. All right, and let's go into that. So here's Mount Gerizim, and that's the mountain that she's making reference to. Let's see. Look at this. For the Samaritan people, most of whom live around it, Mount Gerizim is considered the holiest place on earth. You see that? Mount Gerizim is considered by the Samaritans the holiest place on earth. So they were going off. When did the Most High say, okay, I got Jerusalem. Okay, then we got the kingdom of heaven. All right. Then another place I'm thinking of, Moses speaking to the children of Israel and saying to them, Mount Gerizim, that's going to be the holiest holiest place on earth. Okay, and David, I want you to take the temple and I want you to build it and give it to Solomon and build it in Mount Gerizim. That never happened. They're just doing their own thing, man. They're just doing what they want to do. This was never given by the Most High. There was never instruction to do what you want to do. The mountain is mentioned in the Bible as the place where which we read in Deuteronomy 27, upon first entering the promised land after the Exodus, the Israelites performed ceremonies and blessings as they instructed Moses, as been instructed by Moses. Mount Gerizim is considered sacred to the Samaritans, who regard it rather than Jerusalem's Temple Mount as the location chosen by the Most High for a holy temple. In Samaritan tradition, it is the oldest, most central mountain in the world. So they were just going off. Now I want to jump down. Look at this. A Samaritan temple. I wish I can kind of make this larger. Okay, so a Samaritan temple dedicated to the Most High was built upon Mount Gerizim during the 5th century BC. And you can look this up on you can go deep into this if you want to. It existed alongside the Israelite Second Temple in Jerusalem. By that point, the Israelites were divided in Samaritans and Jews, because those Samaritans were Israelites who decided to have an apostate spirit, and go against the law and do their own thing. Right? It reads, let's see. I want to jump down. Okay, we read this already, that it was destroyed by John Hyrcanus. Right? So John actually destroyed that, which shows us why she's saying this in John the 4th chapter, and why they looked at those people of Samaria, those Israelites, as apostates, as rebels, as heathen. There's a reason and a history behind that. You know, now when you go deep into it, you see that was that war going on. It reads, the archaeological finds have shown that the precincts of the Samaritan temple, not including its gates, measured 96 meters by 98 meters. Inside this perimeter, thousands of pottery vessels, burned bones of animal sacrifices, sheep, goats, cattle, and doves were found, as well as many stones with inscriptions containing the Tetragrammaton, the name of the Most High. Right? So, you know, that's what was going on between Israel of the Samaritans and the Jews. You had Israel in that land. A lot of them got taken captive. You had Israelites moving all over the place, scattered abroad due to the Greeks coming in. Then you had Pompey, who came and captured Jerusalem around 65 BC, which I want to kind of dive into. Lead up to the Herodians. When you go back to this, and let's pull this back up. And this family tree, John Hyrcanus destroyed the temple. So that covers why we went into the Samaritans. Right? And now this is the Hasmonean Dynasty. And the title of this video is the Herodian, the Hasmoneans. The Hasmoneans is another name for the Maccabees. So this is your Hasmonean Dynasty family tree. Mattathias, his 5 sons, and the torch was passed from Judas, Slakia. Then it was passed to Jonathan, and then it was passed to Simon. And Simon passed it to John Hyrcanus. And John Hyrcanus had his sons Aristobulus and Alexander. And from that point on, which I may do a part 2, you had a lot of wars between these brothers. between the sons of the Maccabees. And it got to the point where you see Herod. Why is Herod listed? This is the same Herod you read about in Matthew, the 2nd chapter, who sought to kill Yahushua with the wise men, right? That he sought to find the worship. This same Herod, why is he tied in? Why do you have Mattathias in the beginning and Herod the Edomite at the end? How did the Herods tie into this? Well, you have to remember, when you go to Herod, which is a whole nother lesson within itself. Let's go to Herod. Let's go to the Herod Antipas family tree, right? Let's go to Herod Antipas family tree so brothers can look at this and actually see what was going on. Now, let's pull this up. Bear with me. All right, I want to get this on the map. I want to get a clear description too, right? So bear with me. Let's see if this is a little bit clearer. Okay, check this out. So Herod the Great, right? Reigned 37 BC to 4 BC. This is the same Herod you read about, like I brought out in Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Not every Herod is the same. You have Herod the Great, Herod Antipas, Herod Agrippa, Herod Agrippa II. You have all these different Herods. The same Herod in the book of Acts. It's like I'll say Acts, the 23rd chapter, the 24th chapter, 25. That's a different Herod than Acts, the 12th chapter, right? And that Herod in Acts, the 12th chapter is a different Herod than Matthew, the 2nd chapter. So you have various Herods that went by that same name, right? But they're all related by blood. They're all Edomites. They're Edomites by blood. Matthew chapter 2 and 1. Now, when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. So you have Herod the king. You have an entire family tree of Levitical priests who were high priests, men that ruled. And all of a sudden, now Herod, a so-called white man, which he is, now he's the king. What happened? Right? So here's Herod the Great. Now I actually want to go to Herod the Great's. Let's see. Let's go to Antipater. Right? I want to go further. So check this out. Well, that's not the Antipater. Let's see. Bear with me. Right, spelled priest wrong, but Salakia. I want to get this because I want to show. All right, I'll go back. It should be on here, right? I want to go back and show you how this man actually came, right, into power. Right, I want to go back and show you how this man actually came into power, how he was set up. Right? So here's what I want. Antipater the Idumean. All right, Antipater the Idumean. So when you read the book of Maccabees, like I said, you read about Simon, you read about John Hyrcanus. We know the Idumeans are the Edomites. We don't even have to do an in-depth breakdown on that. Idumea is the Greco-Roman way of saying Edom. Edom is what? It means red. Esau's name was changed to Edom, or that was another name given to him. Let me get that in Genesis 25. The Lord said, therefore was his name called Edom, So when you see the word Idumea, it goes back to the word Edom. Genesis chapter 25. And I'm going to get straight to the point. And verse 30. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. Edom in the Hebrew, Adawam. Right? Adawa and the Ma. Adawam, which means red. So you have Antipater, the Idumean, or Antipater, the red man, the red one, the Edomite. So Herod the Great is an Edomite. So Antipater, the Idumean, was the founder of the Herodian dynasty and father of Herod the Great. So Herod the Great, as you read about in Matthew, the 2nd chapter, he comes from Antipater, the Idumean. Right? According to Josephus, he was the son of Antipas and had formerly held that name. A native of Edom, southeast of Judah, between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, which under the Romans came to be known as Idumea. And there's a book, man, I believe Yaradon has it. Oh, boy, it's called The Ancient Romans and the Idumeans. It's something along those lines. I'm sure brothers, you know about it. Right? Let me see if I can actually just look it up real quick. Let's see. Romans. I'm winging it with this search, right? Romans, Edomites book. Right? Who is Edom? The Roman Empire, the empire of the Edomite. The Roman Empire, the empire of the Edomites. See that? Because even the scholars know that the Edomites are the Romans, right? They know that. The Edomites are the Greeks. So when we go out there and say, okay, look, you're an Edomite, and you say, well, no, I'm English. Well, who do the English go back to? Well, the English ultimately go back to the Romans. A man might say, well, I'm German, I'm French. Well, you go back to the Roman Empire. You're an Edomite. Who is Esau, Edom? So, it's not new. It's not nothing breaking. Everybody knows, even the world-renowned scholars, that the Edomites come out of Rome, right? And Idumea. Here it is. This is the one I was actually thinking about. Yep, the Roman Empire, the empire of the Edomite. If you don't have that book, it's a decent book to go into. Esau, Edom, Rome, the hidden identity, the man of sin. Right? So when you go back into this, the Romans came to be known as Idumea, which they're Edomites themselves. Antipater, check this out. This is where Jake always goes off. So this Edomite, Antipater, this is how Herod the Great became king, essentially. Herod Antipater became a powerful official under the late Hasmonean kings. See that? So they essentially let this man be a general or be in his army. Right? He was essentially a general. And Jake, Jake, you never learn. You never learn. You let these guys in, and you essentially get overthrown. Right? You essentially get overthrown. Like the brother said, that Saul spirit. Let me actually get that. I was just thinking about that. Right? Saul had Doeg the Edomite. Right? Doeg. Let's pull up Doeg. Doeg. Who killed the priest. Right? Doeg the Edomite. 1 Samuel 21:7. You cannot take Esau and try to put him in a position of authority. When are you going to learn? Job, the Lord, in Job, the 30th chapter, Job said that he doesn't even want them around the dogs of his flock. Right? Let me get that in Job. Chapter 30. So what are you doing making him an official? That's like Esau joining the camp. Okay, we're going to make Esau the captain of 3,000. All right, Esau, Yeah, you was a prospect. You go through the prospect program. You go through your months and months and months and labor. You're on a gauntlet. You're on the line. You're taking the quizzes. You're on a cause. You laboring. You building this. You doing that. And down he finally get the whole post or whatever. And then he elevates. He builds himself up. And he becomes a reader. Then he might teach. And then you make Esau. Okay, we're gonna make you an officer. Okay. Well, look, we're gonna make you a captain. Or a senior officer, we're going to make you a captain. That's madness. How do you think your congregation is going to be? You may leave. Okay, look, I got to go here. Esau, I want you to hold it down. All hell is going to break loose. You make Esau the captain over anything over Jacob. I mean, what do you expect? Oppression, confusion, sin, and death, and madness, and darkness, and evil and lust. Job 30:1. See, Job had this thing figured out. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. And this is really going into the Edomites. Now, don't say the word Edom in there. You may say, well, it doesn't say Edom in there. You're making that up. It doesn't say Antipater. It doesn't say Idumea. Well, it don't say white man. Well, guess what? It don't have to say white man. I'm going to just come out and tell you that right now. If that's what you're thinking, we'll just cut it out. It's not going to say Edomite all the time or Esau. You got to go in the spirit. You have to have the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, man, and see what Job is saying. The Edomites are younger than us. You may say, well, hold on. Didn't Esau come out first? Yes, Esau came out first, but who's the firstborn? We're the firstborn. Who received the adoption? Who are the sons of God? We are. So these other nations, they're younger than us. Spiritually. They're inferior. Yes, they have us in derision. They mock us. Job said the same people that mock us and ridicule you, and the same people who think that they know every damn thing, who have all of the answers, the same people you trust in the military and trust in the politicians, who you think is your God and your savior, Job said they're nothing. They're so worthless, I don't even want them around the dogs of my flock. I don't want them around the dogs of my flock. They're beneath my dogs. Put them so far beyond, and dogs are filthy, man. I mean, dogs will eat their own vomit. I mean, it's an absolute madness, man. They do God knows what. They tear up stuff. They stink. They smelling dead things. And Job said, I don't want them around my dogs. Now, King Saul, he wasn't in that spirit. King Saul did what? 1 Samuel 21:7. He made a grave mistake. Now, a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg, an Edomite. I hate to even read this, man. The chiefest of the herdmen that belonged to Saul. So he made him the chief herdman. So it took to tell you, Saul's mind wasn't right. Right? His mind was bad. You don't take an Edomite and make him your chief herdsman. You keep him where he's supposed to be, in the back, working. You don't give him no authority. And the Lord said in First Maccabees, the first chapter, that wickedness was multiplied in the earth when the Edomites have authority. You know? And then I'm not going to tell you everything that happened with Doeg, but Doeg ended up killing the priests. And I'm going to actually read it. All right? This 1 Samuel chapter 22. Right? 1 Samuel chapter 22. See, now I'm getting mad. Right? I mean, that's why our people have to read the scriptures, man. We have to read the Bible, right? And see and just study our history, man. They tell you that in the world. He that doth not study history is bound to repeat it. Here you are, setting Antipater as a top official in the Hasmonean dynasty that was predicated on you fighting against a so-called white man, the same man that started that you fought against in the beginning of your rebellion. You take him and make him have some say so. Madness. You're making leagues with the Romans. You're doing this. Stop trusting the so-called white man. Now, 1 Samuel 22:17. And the king, the Saul, said unto the footmen that stood about him, turn and slay the priest of the Lord. And King Saul actually said, slay the priest of Yahweh. You would think saying those words would have you be like, what did I just say? Forget about it. He didn't forget about it. He said, slay the priest of Yahweh. And he didn't have a second mind behind it, because their hand also was with David. And because they knew where he fled and did not show it me, but the servants of the king would not put forth their hands to fall upon the priest of the Lord. So Israel said, I'm not killing a priest. I don't care who you are. I'm not killing a Levitical priest. And that's a wicked thing to command. And the king said to Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned and fell upon the priest, and slew in that day 75 persons that did wear a linen ephod. You think Doeg was like, so I don't know about this. You really want me to kill the priest? Maybe you should. He didn't even have a second mind. He pulled his sword out and start murdering. Now, guess what? Saul told him to kill the priest. This man went above and beyond and did extra. What else did he do? Not only did he slay the priest, but what? And Nob, the city of the priest, smote he with the edge of the sword. Saul never told him to do that, but he did it anyway. Bloodlust. Did not Esau say, the days of mourning for my father at hand? Then will I slay my brother Jacob? Does not it say Esau doth comfort himself, proposing to kill thee? He took that and ran away with it. So he destroyed the whole city, both men and women, and children and sucklings. When did King Saul say, go kill Israelite babies? That's why you don't let this man around you, man. When did the Most High say, kill all and the oxen and the asses and the sheep? Right? And that shows you what happens when you put this damn devil near you, man. You know? And that's what we're going to read about, the fatal tragedy with Antipater, the Idumean. Right? Let's go into this. So Antipater became a powerful official under the later Hasmonean kings, and subsequently became a client of the Roman general Pompey the Great. You see that? Because Pompey the Great, he was really over Judea. Right? Pompey the Great, you read about the triumvirate, with Crassus, Pompey, and Julius Caesar. All right? And he was a powerful official, and he actually captured Judea around the time of 65 BC. And the Romans ended up setting up the Idumeans over Judea. And that's how Herod the Great became the king. So when Pompey conquered Judah in the name of the Roman Republic. So Pompey captured Jerusalem in 65 BC, and he set up over Jerusalem, he set up Antipater. And Antipater, when he died, he set up Herod the Great. And that's how Herod the Great became the king of Judea. All because of what was going on between the Hasmoneans. Right? When Julius Caesar defeated Pompey, Antipater rescued Caesar in Alexandria. You see that? So he was fighting hand in hand with for Julius Caesar, and was made chief minister of Judea. As Judah became known to the Romans with the right to collect taxes, Antipater eventually made his sons Phasaelus and Herod the governors of Jerusalem and Galilee, respectively. After the assassination of Caesar, Antipater was forced to side with Gaius Cassius Longinus and Mark Antony. The pro-Roman politics of Antipater led to his increasing unpopularity among the devout, non-Hellenized Jews. He died by poison. Right? the diplomacy and artful politics of Antipater, as well as his insinuation into the Hasmonean court, see that they let him in, paved the way for the rise of his son, Herod the Great. Check this out. Who used this position to marry the Hasmonean princess, Marianne, endear himself to Rome and become king of Judea under Roman influence. See that? So Herod actually married an Israelite woman. So a lot of those Israelite women, I mean, it's like some of those Herods, they may have kind of looked like Jake, right? Because you might have an Edomite father and an Eve mother. And a child may come out kind of, let's see if we can actually get a picture. Let's see, white man and black mother, right? Children. Let's see. All right, let me see what we can get out of this. Okay, hold on. I want to get something else. All right, I want to see his son. Now look at this. It's kind of hard to see. So that's an Edomite. That's a coon, bedwench Eve, and these are her children. So the Herods, they could have looked like this, man. There's no telling what they look like. We don't know. We wasn't there. We didn't see them. But when you have an Eve mother with those strong genes, you have an Edomite father, you're going to get these different phenotypical structures. Some of them may have had woolly hair. Some of them, and this was done on purpose to pollute that seed, man. Like Yahushua said in Matthew the 13th chapter, when he asked who put these tares in there, they said an enemy had done this. Because some of these guys, you might, if you didn't know any better, if you took a time machine and you looked at Herod the First or Agrippa, and you might have said, is that a Jake? Or is that an Edomite? Sometimes you look at these guys, you're like, I don't know, man. The jury's out, right? This is Matthew 13. And let's see. I want to get straight to the point. 27. Right, here's the parable with the wheats and the tares, right? It reads, so the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence hath it tares? So wheat and tares physically resemble one another. You can look at a grain of wheat or piece of wheat grown up, look at a tare, trying to figure out which one is which, because they're identical. And he said unto them, an enemy had done this. The servant said unto him, wilt thou that we go and gather them up? But he said, nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. So you looking at Herod, I said, that's an Edomite. Well, that's a Jake. I don't know. Well, you have to let the Most High determine who's who. Now we know historically that they're Edomites, but if you took a time machine, where's that at? Where is it? You wouldn't know, man. See if I can get some more images on this. Right? Look at this. See this Jake right? Oh, it's Esau right here. So Herod could have looked like this. Let's say that that's Herod the Great. Right? Let's say that that's the Eve mother from the son of the Maccabees, a Levite mother. You know, them Levites a lot of them are dark. Not all of them, but. And let's say Herod may have looked like this. We don't know. But I'm sure you get the point. Oh boy, not that. Oh boy. What is this? Look at this. Just transracial. Growing up white, transracial adoptee learned to be black. Oh boy. That's a cold cut. That's a stat. Okay, I'm gonna move on. All right, so you get the point, right? You get the point that this woman was one of the daughters of the Maccabees, right? Marianne, also called Marianne the Hasmonean, was a Hasmonean princess and the second wife of Herod the Great. She was known for her great beauty, as was her brother Aristobulus. And Aristobulus, he's one of the brothers who helped overthrow the whole thing, the whole Hasmonean dynasty. Herod's fear of his rivals, the Hasmoneans, led him to execute all the prominent members of the family. So Herod ended up killing all of the rest of the line of the Maccabees and taking over, including Mariamne, right? So, which goes back to Miriam. So that was an Eve that ended up getting put to death by Herod the Great. All right. So I'm not going to go into the whole family tree, but when you go into, check this out, Herod the Great, a lot of those guys married Eves, man. So you have Herod the Great, then you have Herod Philip I, Herod Archelaus, Herod Antipas, right? You have Aristobulus and Alexander, then you have Herod Agrippa I, then you have Herod Agrippa II, and they actually provide the scriptures, which is beautiful. Herod Agrippa I, that's in Acts the 12th chapter. Then you have Herod Agrippa II, that's in Acts the 25th chapter. So you have different Herods, right? Herod, who was rebuked by John the Baptist in Matthew the 14th chapter. You have all these different men that came out. But ultimately, it started with Antipater the Idumean. And they married into the line of the lineage of the Maccabees, and all hell broke loose. That's what the Most High said in Sirach the 12th chapter, never trust thine enemy, man. Like I said, I'm just laying the groundwork. I'm not going to read every name of the Hasmonean dynasty and everyone they married. I'm laying the foundation so brothers can look into it, man. Right? Dive into that history and go deep into seeing how your forefathers ended up in this situation. Sirach 12 and 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So you let Antipater in, the Idumean, takes over his bloodline, kills your bloodline, and they become the king of Jerusalem. So that's just been some brief history of Samaria, brief history of the Herodian dynasty, some brief history of the Hasmonean dynasty. Most High willing you were edified, just covering that inter-testamental period between the time of Malachi and the time of Matthew, the 1st chapter. Giving again our honor and glory to Yahweh. By Shema Mashiach, Most High willing you was edified. Kwam Yashala.